First question to you, Jana, is as you moved into year two as Reagan, how did you approach it differently from the last season?
I think that what I wanted with Regan in season two was just to be a little more comedy forward. And I think we all sort of wanted her to have a lot of jokes and to be a little bit more central. Sort of, we want to see the power shift happen in her character and being a little bit more empowered and experiencing success. And so yeah, I think that generally in season two we just wanted to be a lot more comedy forward, and Regan sort of champions that.
Kaniehtiio, to you, what attracted you to this role of Featherday?
Honestly, I would have taken any role. I just wanted to be on the show. Honest. I was a super fan of the show and what it was, what the show was doing in terms of representation in front of and behind the camera, in comedy, which is like why I became an actress. I was just a fan and I wanted to be a part of it. I was like, I've been doing this for like almost 20 years. I'm Indigenous. I need to be on this show. And then an opportunity came up for the second season and the role was just so fitting as the villainess, I guess you might say. So when I got it and I got to like kind of build this character, and I was, kind of told that like, just think of like, she's the conservative Indian. And I'm like, really? Okay, interesting. That was kind of new for me. So that was, but conservative Indigenous women exist. So somebody's got to portray them, right? I had an absolutely, thrilling time coming onto set. Everybody was so welcoming. I felt valued for the experience and what I was bringing to the table. And it was just a lot of fun. And it was a really nice experience not being the only Indigenous person on set, because I didn't feel like I had to be the cultural consultant at the same time. Everything, there were things that I was like, oh, awesome. It was all figured out in the writer's room. So I got to just like come and do the job that I was hired for, and that's it. And that was really freeing in a way.
Jana, back to you. From a writing perspective, what's it like to balance that writing and then also starring at the same time?
Well, in the first season, we sort of, our writer's room was cut off halfway by COVID-19. So we started on Zoom, and because of COVID-19 also, the writing didn't overlap with production as it normally does. So season one, we finished the entire season long before we went back into production. In fact, we didn't even know if we were going to have a production. This was like back in the beginning of COVID, where we just didn't even know if there was an industry in this time, So season two, my writing contract was shorter. So I did 12 weeks instead of 22, because we knew that like I would have to, because the writing and the production overlapped, we knew that I would have to step away. And but I made sure to pop back in when I could and join the writing team. They're all my friends, they're my family. And so I made sure to like, I still had a pulse on the room if I could on set zoom in every once in a while and check in.
I think what I loved the most about your character was the introduction. When you walk in as Featherday, it's like, hello, I'm here. I'm establishing that I am going to be, like you kind of said, that villain right away. And you kind of go right at Terry. What was it like working with Michael?
It was so much fun. I think my favorite is having like a really great audience, and Michael's like a super good. He just makes me feel hilarious. It's so fun making him laugh, and it's really. I'm not saying it's easy to make him laugh, but it's really easy, like having a back and forth with him. I was also really intimidated because I'm pretty sure that was the first scene that I shot was the first scene that I appear was the first scene that I shot. And I had butterflies. I mean, we're in this like huge set on, on a lot. I'm, everyone's all like, we're so excited to have you. And then I'm like, fuck, I better not fuck this up. So that was partly like, it was intimidating, but so I really had to just like be like, all right, fuck, it's go time, and so that was kind of the energy I think I brought to it. But working with Michael was an absolute pleasure. And he, like I said, I just love making him laugh. And, I would be like, yes, score, like after a scene or after a take, and he'd be like, where have you been? How did we never work with each other? And I was like, because we're always the only Indian on every project. We never get put together. That's why. So yeah, he was an absolute pleasure.
Jana, back to you. I like the healthy balance of comedy, but also touching on the real issues at the same time. When you are writing it and even playing in front of the camera, how do you balance that out to make sure that you are getting that good mix?
Well, that is sort of the beauty of situational comedy is, you put characters in real life situations, and a lot of the situations that we're putting these characters in are not that fictional. These are real experiences of the writers. We sit around as native writers, for season 2, we're writing this episode about, or we're trying to, map out the season, and we're talking about how during COVID-19 we all went back to our homelands, or we all went back to our reservations. And when I went back to my res last summer, I needed to get a tribal ID, and I was talking about how it was so hard to like go and renew my tribal ID, something that was so basic and so simple. And I went with my one of my aunties that lives on the res, and I had been calling all day, the tribal office, being like, okay, I have all these documents, like I'm gonna be there like right before you close, I promise I'll be on time. And she's really giving me a hard time, the receptionist. And then I got there, and she sees that I'm in the car with my auntie, who she knows. She's like, oh, and just lets me right in. Like, I had no idea that like it would take just her to be able to see my aunt and be like, oh sure, come on in, get your it's just so stupid. But like that is how it is. So like we're not like drumming up these like magical scenarios. These are truly like day-to-day situations that we're all in, and we're just sort of making fun of them, poking fun of them, and at the same time illuminating what it's like to live indigenously.
Kaniehtiio, back to you. My question to you is how important is the representation that this show has to we see it spread out across all of productions?
I mean, it's super important, right? And for a lot of my career, I've been up in Canada, and at the beginning of my career, I didn't think I would ever get cast as an Indigenous person because I never saw an Indigenous person that looked like me in Indigenous roles on television or film. But slowly I've seen, and I guess I'm part of that change of how people view us, that we're not just, that we come in all shapes, sizes, and shades. And so I feel like in Canada, it's definitely changing. It's changed. Partly because they know the industry knows who I am, the country knows, who I am, especially because of shows like Letterkenny. And then in the States, I think there's still a ways to go. I know that I'll get cast in an Indigenous role if there are Indigenous people in executive positions and in, like directors or whatever. But if it's in an all non-Indigenous exec room, I'm not going to get cast as an Indigenous person. I know that, I accept it. It definitely, things have to change, but I think shows like this at such a high level, Universal and Peacock, and having people like Ed Helms who are advocating and being allies. I think that this is a huge step in terms of for Hollywood, for the United States, for sure. because like I said, I think it's slowly been happening up here in Canada. I mean, we have a smaller industry, we have a smaller country. And yeah, I think it's doing a lot. And I don't just mean by like being light-skinned Indigenous people. I think it's doing wonders for all Indigenous people and representation. And I hope that, I was producer on Shoresy, the Letterkenny spinoff, and I got to look at all of these casting tapes for people like under like 30. And I was astounded at how much talent there is out there for Indigenous. There's going to be a lot of competition. Like for me, in my age category as an Indigenous woman, I have like, I could count on one, maybe two hands who I'm up against. But in terms of, but seeing what's coming up behind us, there's a lot of competition. So the more representation that we have and the more stories that are being told, the more of these younger people will have roles to fill. And so it's really exciting. It's exciting to be a part of this.